The driver of yesterday's incident had been identified as a 52-year-old white British man. You will all know there have been very many recent cases. Let me take this back out here. There have been very many recent cases where it would be a social media hate crime to accurately point out the race of a perpetrator. The Christian boy who stabbed the 3 girls at the Taylor Swift dance thing, racist to say Muslim. In fact, I'm fairly certain people don't want to make a mistake here, so take this with a grain of salt and encrypt this if you can fact check this in real time. I'm pretty sure people who posted that the individual was Muslim shortly thereafter ran into certain potential legal problems, or at the very least visits from the UK authority. I reserve the right to be wrong on that, but I'll look to the chat for correction or affirmation. So people were rightly questioning why yesterday they so quickly identified the man as being white. Set that aside. I'm going to sound. I gotta preface it because otherwise it's going to sound like I'm talking for myself here. Police naming Liverpool's parade suspect's ethnicity may cause future, quote, challenges. Former Superintendent Dal Babu, my dog's name was Babu, but we spelt it Boboo. Dal Babu says, although decision was correct to counter misinformation, it may be exploited by far right. Dal Babu, pictured in 2013, says it doesn't take rocket science to predict what will happen. The far right will twist this and say, right, you've named him because it's a white person. Why aren't you naming the next person? Why are they using a 2013 picture of Dal Babu when we're talking about something that happened yesterday, 12 years later? I just got to see something here. When I say that the media covers for these people, I wonder what he looks like now. Dal Babu today. Images. Oh boy. Well, he doesn't look bad, but he doesn't look like that anymore. All right, well, whatever. We'll get back to that later. Merseyside police's decision to release details of the ethnicity of the suspect in the Liverpool parade collision. They're still calling it a collision. Parade collision could raise, quote, difficulties and challenges, end quote, for forces in the future. Former Superintendent Merseyside? Police said they arrested a 53-year-old white British man from the Liverpool area about 2 hours after the incident that left dozens of people, including 4 children, injured. The miracle in this, by the way, I think he injured 65 people. Touchwood, Pupukane Hora, nobody died yet. I think they're charging him with attempted murder, which means that he didn't actually, whether or not he was trying to, apparently he might have been on drugs. He didn't kill anybody. Small miracles. Injured 65, nobody died yet, and hopefully it stays that way. Dal Babu, who was a senior Met officer, told the Guardian's first edition that the decision was unprecedented, end quote, but he could envisage pressure being applied to forces in the future to release details on the racial background of suspects. We read that clip, it doesn't take rocket science. Babu stressed the decision had been correct, end quote, to share the information on this occasion to combat, quote, racist and Islamophobic misinformation on social media, while warning that every decision should be taken on a case-by-case basis. I don't want you to think I'm the bigot here. I get accused of being too naive, too tolerant, too loving, too forgiving. If the rationale for identifying the individual was to combat disinformation because people might run with an Islamophobic attack angle to this, how many white Muslims are there? Like, is this the rationale is that this is somehow going to quell potential concerns, but say he's white, therefore he couldn't be Muslim? Like, or he's dark-skinned and therefore is Muslim? Listen to this. As of 2025, the global population, 2.5 billion. Based on available data points, 100 million, while other 10, what's going on here? Without the number could be as low as tens of millions or as high as 200 million, depending on the definitions and assumptions. The idea that they would assume that he can't be Muslim because he's white, if that's the reason for which they want to identify him to quell those concerns, is utterly idiotic. And the fact that they identify the white guy this time when they haven't done it for all the other times doesn't confirm that in this instance, it wasn't potentially ideologically motivated. It just means that in every other time when they didn't do it, you now know damn well why they didn't do it. But let's just finish that article before we get into the next one. You could imagine a situation where the FAR would say, oh, you haven't. Okay. It's really important that people don't see it as a precedent because every incident will be different. Yeah. Don't hold us to a standard. Everyone is going to be to a different standard depending on who did it and what we want to cover up for as long as we want to cover it up, like we did with that Christian Nigerian boy who stabbed 3 girls when he was, in fact, I believe, carrying a Quran at the time, if I'm not mistaken. Senior legal source said there could be circumstances where naming the ethnicity of a suspect could cause riots rather than quell them. No shit, Sherlock. So what you're basically saying here is, if you say the person's white, nobody's going to riot. If you say the person is illegal, foreigner, who goes around stabbing Brits, they might riot. So you're going to hide that information from them. This is exactly how they victimize you. And then they suppress you and give themselves more rights to conceal their own failed policy. Now, just as a matter of fact, as relates to this particular story, the driver has been accused of suspicion of attempted murder, which means that there was intent, so not a medical emergency, after plowing into crowd at Liverpool soccer parade. 53-year-old British man who injured 65 people when his car rammed into a crowd of Liverpool soccer fans celebrating their team's Premier League championship, was arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. The driver was also being held on suspicion of dangerous driving and driving on drugs. Okay, fantastic. The incident left 50 people in the hospital for treatment of their injuries. 11 remain hospitalized in stable condition. The wounded included 4 children, one of whom had been trapped beneath the vehicle with 3 adults. Police had closed off much of the area. Not much, mostly. We closed off most of the area, not all of it. So you basically entirely failed. It's sort of one of those things where, like, yeah, well, we did 90% of the cordoning off, but the 10% is where the person got through. Well, we did our job. No, you did your job 0. But the driver is believed to have maneuvered around a roadblock by following an ambulance that was rushing to treat a person suspected of having a heart attack. This sounds very calculated. Merseyside police said they were not treating the incident as terrorism and were not looking for other suspects. The force has not identified the arrested driver. Police in Britain usually do not name suspects until they are charged. Detectives, they don't. Dude, we're going to find something else out in this story. There's no question about it. Detectives were still working to piece together why the minivan plowed into crowds packing a narrow street just after players of the Liverpool fan club had celebrated its championship with an opening. The incident cast shadow over a city that has suffered twin tragedies linked to soccer team and led to widespread expression of shock, sadness, and support. Truly devastating. Crime scene scoured for evidence. Maybe we can skip this, but suspect partly identified to stop rumor mill. Do you know why there was the rumor mill? Because in the last time when you concealed the guy's identity, and I believe it even went after people for accurately describing it, you did it because you didn't want people rightly objecting to the consequences of failed policy. Police quickly identified the suspect as a white local man to prevent misinformation from flooding social media. Rotherham said, okay, fine, whatever, that's it. Last summer, a teen in the nearby town in Southport killed 3 girls in a stabbing rampage at a dance class and wounded 10 others, including 2 adults. An incorrect name of the suspect was spread on social media, and people said he was an asylum seeker. In fact, he had been born in the UK. Rioting spread across England and Ireland, targeting Muslims and refugees in hotels for asylum seekers. Do they mention that guy's name? Hold on a second. Let's do this in real time. Here. Name. In the aftermath of the Southport knife attack, there was a sense of national trauma over the killings. Do we inadequate? Let's see this. In the anger and disbelief soon followed, prompting burning questions over the identity, background, and possible motive of the attacker. Despite public demands for information, the police provided few details about the attacker. There was very little information. He was not named because he was 17 at the time of the attack. The UK's independent reviewer of terrorism legislation had told BBC Panorama that he believes the quality and quantity of information released by the authorities in the hours after the attack was inadequate. Did they name the guy? I know they named the guy. We know what's his name. About it.
Muhammad.
What's his name? Was that his actual name?
Yeah, I'm looking for the source now.
I think he might have changed his name because I believe he was a convert. Let's see if we can get that source real quick. Like, that's what's going on in the UK, people. They'll tell you when the suspect is white to avoid rioting, But they won't tell you when he's not, because it might lead to rioting, because it might be the case that the open borders and the systematic protection of the Pakistani, not even grooming gangs, rape gangs, it might have led to some riots if they had revealed that information. So they withheld it from the public for the public's own good, so that the public wouldn't riot as a result of the failed policy of those in charge.